Okay, welcome back, class. We've got a initial video on this one, the PowerPoint, and truth be known, this is probably what we should be showing you the first day of class. But there's other things that we got to get you guys in order to get you into clinicals, so that's why this one kind of got delayed a little bit. So let's do the formal introduction at this point, and of course we're going to talk about the introduction to paramedicine. And a lot of times, you got to understand who and what you are and what role you're playing in there. And I think that that's so very important. And so, again, emergency medical services, that's what we're doing and what we're training to be. And a paramedic is again, a highly trained health professional. As you guys have already learned, you're engaging in knowledge of medications and a certain skill set to provide emergency medical care. And hopefully that goes a little bit farther. We're teaching about being, comprehensive, compassionate. We're teaching you about being a good person as well as being a good paramedic involved in this. And again, I think efficiency is definitely one of the things, one of the skills of a paramedic absolutely has to have. I hate the term technician. I really do. Because I think a paramedic has gone a lot farther than that, to the point where I would say we are clinicians, not technicians. Again, if you're an EMT, that's more of a technical. What we are doing is actually applying critical concepts in order to make patients better, and we are entrusted with a lot of things. Now, they love to put these on tests so that, hey, do you know where you are in the food chain type of test. So in emergency medicine, there's the emergency medical responder, EMR. It's usually for your first responder type situations. EMTs have basic emergency medical care, but they can also, the EMT where the EMR can't really, the EMR can be a driver where the EMT can actually attend patients. Again, and they can transport critical and emergent patients for the EMT. Now, there's two other levels. Here in Florida, we don't have this one, the advanced EMT. And again, this is it's for basic and limited advanced emergency medical care. In their scope of practice, they're allowed to intubate, they're allowed to start IVs. They're very limited on the medications they can push, and they're usually limited to the advanced cardiac life support medicines, and that's it. Where a paramedic, again, advanced emergency medical care, and that they're responsible for complex decision making. And again, now we're really kind of branching out. There are so many branches that we're going into. Again, there's the fire-based EMS. There is, transfer, again, critical care paramedics. There are public health roles that we're playing now. The community paramedic. Again, public safety. We've been a part of that with the fire service for a very long time. Matter of fact, I'm going to be very honest. There's a certain detriment, I think. Fire-based EMS systems are great, but there is a but there, though. There is a sacrifice sometimes in care or leadership of those emergency medical resources. Again, if you're a fireman, you want to be a good fireman. If you're a good paramedic, you want to be a good paramedic. If you're a good police officer, you want to be a good police officer. It's very hard to be all three of those disciplines, or even two of the three of those disciplines. Very difficult to do. Again, we make critical judgments all the time, and we have to be accurate, and usually that means 100% of the time we have to be accurate. And again, we're making independent decisions. We're not making a phone call to a doctor back from the 1970s where then we are allowed to do treatments. We have the appropriate licensing and credentialing. In the state of Florida, we have certification, and legally, I find it very funny, because the legal definition of that is license and certification. Certification has to work under a licensed professional. However, once we get in the courtroom, it's amazing how our certified really gets treated like a licensed individual. So legally wise, it's synonymous. State-wise, or being able to do things, is actually two different things. You're actually working under the doctor's license. And that's one thing you really have to remember. You're working under your medical director's license. Okay? So again, we've got a lot of roles here. We really do. And So and there's a lot of other things that overlap, and we fall right there, right in the middle. Okay, and so yeah, we have some hybrid functions that we do. Okay, so again, we're under the control of a medical director. They are the ones that say what you can and cannot do. Certain medical directors, I've been under medical directors that have let me do pretty much anything I want to. I've also worked under medical directors which have said put them on oxygen and bring them to the hospital. So it's amazing how the variance is. And again, the standard of care nowadays, most modern medical directors are usually more liberal about what you can and can't do. And again, there is an expectation to the public and at our professionalism. And unfortunately, I think that's one of the things that we haven't worked on too well, that hopefully we are going to get through this course. And then again, the components of the continuum of care. That role is expanding. Just like we have a lot of expansion within medicine. And I'll give you the perfect example of this. The freestanding ER. Well, how do you get these folks to a place where they can be admitted for further treatment? Guess what? You're going to have to load them in an ambulance, and more than likely it's going to be a paramedic transferring them in between the two facilities. So again, as a modern paramedic, we're actually kind of the link. People will call us when their loved one is there at the house, they can't maneuver anything, and we're kind of like that first link in access to healthcare systems. And again, we maintain a really high quality of care, and actually at a rather reasonable cost. And I would go as far as to say we are actually pretty good stewards of our money, because as firemen or EMS people, we've learned to do a whole lot with almost absolutely nothing. And again, we make sure that we get the best possible care, response. And again, we are called usually to emergent situations, and we do our best to treat these patients, even though they may not have money or the ability to pay. And that's very important. If anything, that makes us a wonderful entity in that. And unfortunately, it also means that sometimes we are abused because we are, quote unquote, we're gonna take care of them even if they are not able to pay. So your modern paramedic again has a public education, health promotion. They're responsible for all that, and we also do mobile integrated healthcare. So we're doing the role of paramedicine. We're actually doing where we're going out into the community, and this was actually done as a stopgap measure to help reduce the workload, and it's actually kind of taken a life of its own. One of the things I will say about that particular program is I think that it requires a lot more training, because it's a different facet. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. What I am saying is that a lot of your education right now is geared towards emergency response. And you need to, when you're doing your education, be open to the fact that you might be doing something other than emergency assignments. And it really needs to be that. So to be a paramedic, confidence, you got to be an excellent judge, have good judgment, make sure that you're able to prioritize decisions, and again, be flexible. It's one of the very difficult. If you are one of those rigid, sequential people that you got to do step A, step B, step C, this might not be the career for you. And you got to develop. You have to have a little bit of personality where you're dealing with a wide variety of patients. You can be dealing with a urban outdoorsman one moment, and the next moment you can be a debutante. The very next moment, a pastor. The very next one, a biker. And none of these people are bad, by the way. None of them at all. But you have to deal with them in different ways. So you're definitely an experiment in making sure that you know society and know what happens in different regions of society. And the big one here, you got to be able to function independently. The days of calling medical control to put them on oxygen are over. Again, we are given a great deal of latitude, and we need to be responsible in that in being able to use that latitude. We are true healthcare professionals, and I'm going to use again the term clinician. We are a clinician, and it infuriates me sometimes when other clinicians don't treat us. And again, we have kind of a narrow skill set, but we have a very that skill set. We have to be good at it. Okay. Again, resuscitation medicine. I can tell you right now, we're probably better at it than most other places that are, that pride themselves on resuscitation. And review and practice for skills and procedures. Again, continually ongoing training. We're going to, again, I think peer evaluation is a very important part of our concept. And then we take an active role in our profession and community organizations. You build rapport this way. And again, a lot of times, a lot of people say, well, that's not our job. I beg to differ. Your community, if you're embedded in your community, and your community not only respects but appreciates what you do, come time, they will come and stand with you. And you should take that opportunity in which to do that. Again, public education, it is part of our job. I don't, again, you're tired. You've run 10 calls already, and then you got to go from 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. to go do a hands-only CPR event. Guys, yeah, that is part of your job, okay? Again, if we can prevent or have somebody do a job in which, makes our job easier, not only that, but it builds the rapport. You'll be surprised how much, if you put into that particular assignment, how much you actually receive back from it. Again, we get our National Emergency Medical Service Education Standards. There's the guidelines that we actually have to follow as teachers. We also participate in research, and there's a code of professional ethics and conduct that I think we accept. And actually, it's kind of funny because I'm really big on when you take that oath. Again, you're taking that oath. You are what you are as far as your word, and I believe that very much. And we are very entrusted in our communities, and I think that we need to take that trust very seriously and hold ourselves to a higher standard of that. Again, emergency patients are always our primary concern, and a lot of us, we got cross-training, and again, I think there's a plus and a minus to that. The plus is, of course, you're more valuable again, if you're a firefighter paramedic, you're more valuable. If you're a police officer paramedic, you're more valuable. Again, but it's really hard to be skilled at two disciplines, okay? But again, we do a lot of other things and a lot of other duties when we're in the community, and it's part of what we do. Again, remember, we're not only doing 911 response, we're critical care transports, we're doing helicopter. The tactical side of it has blown up over the years, okay? Community paramedicine has blown into it. We're actually going into industrial medicine, sport medicine. There's a lot of industries that hire paramedics, and that's what they're there for: plant operation safety. Corrections, again, they hire paramedics because, simply putting it, again, getting skilled nursing in there, not necessarily their forte, versus us going into different locations. That is something that we do. Hospital emergency departments are using a lot more paramedics as techs in the ER, and hopefully they would use them as clinicians. Again, when I first started in this business, it was very common to have 2 or 3 paramedics on duty doing the same things that the nurses were doing. Unfortunately, the nurses have taken a little bit of a different approach on that, and they basically have said, hey, we're gonna we just need to remind you that we're above, and we are. We're a registered nurse does have more training than a paramedic does. I would argue maybe not in as much as they think, but again, we're both a set of clinicians, okay? And that's the biggest thing, is that we are a set of clinicians, and we should work side by side, not because we're underneath them, but we're working side by side with them. Critical care requires a little bit more training. Specialized ground units, fixed wing aircraft, large vehicles that are mounted on buses, basically large truck chassis. Again, it requires a little bit more skill. This would be an example of again, a pediatric intensive care unit. Again, Shandscare has multiple ground critical care units as well as the aircraft. And again, these guys, the aircraft is staffed by 2 medical crew. The most normal configuration for aircraft operations is a nurse and a paramedic. That's what they usually do. They usually go to the scene calls and nurse facility transfers. So again, air transportation, air EMS, very important part of what we do. Especially when you've got longer transport times, longer distances. If you have a trauma alert in Cedar Key, driving to Chance at top speed is 90 minutes, versus they can fly out and be back in 45 minutes. So again, it's really important that, again, especially when we're dealing with trauma or time sensitive, that again the flights become more important. Tactical EMS. This guy has been again, they're cross trained as police officers. They do carry weapons and they provide the life saving, especially in hostile situations. Again, and tactical EMS has kind of become, especially unfortunately because of the active shooter incidents. Again, this is becoming more and more prevalent to have your medics embedded within the SWAT team in order to provide care initially. Again, mobile integrated healthcare. This is your community paramedic. They go into the field. Basically, they're working as home health nurses, except they're meeting needs of the patients that can't get help by other means, and essentially preventing emergency calls from happening. And I think that is very important. Matter of fact, this has been the huge push. My only reservation is we really need to start working towards training in that direction as well. Okay, there's things that you would do as a community paramedic that you wouldn't do while working for a 911 system or a transfer system. Again, industrial medicines, they're working kind of as a safety officer as well as for the emergency incident. It increases employee safety and it decreases lost time at work. So again, industry has been using us for this purpose for years. Okay, again, you got sports medicine. Again, preventing injuries or help. These are your athletic trainers. A lot of your athletic trainers are now becoming paramedics, as a matter of fact, or definitely EMT level. They're definitely becoming that. And then correction medicine, again, to take care of the inmate populations and oversee medical things that are happening within the prison systems. Again, and the hospitals, they kind of vary state by state, but that usually falls back to the medical director. The medical director saying, yeah, you can use the paramedics for these, or no, they can't do it. And so as long as you're doing it within the scope of paramedicine, they're finding that, yeah, we can use the paramedics in this. I think that, by the way, there's a little bit of cheapness to that because, again, most nursing, you're looking at about $30 an hour, where a paramedic, you're looking at about $20 an hour in those type of situations. So they're looking at it from the financial standpoint of, hey, I can do the same thing with a paramedic that I can do for a nurse, but it's $10 cheaper an hour to do it per person, which I think, by the way, is a slight bit on the criminal side. Again, hopefully they change the licensure, instead of making us certified, making us licensed professionals. And that needs to be, by the way, our push in the future. So again, we are a staple. Again, paramedicine is there. It's there to stay. Again, I've done it for 30 years, and I have seen a lot of advancements in those 30 years, by the way. And do we have some more to go? Absolutely. And we're getting there. I think that we are. I'll see you guys on the next video. I'll catch you then.